Hey everyone, welcome back to another YouTube video. We're so happy to have you back. My name is Rachel.
And my name is Jessica. We are the Certified Occupational Therapy Assistants with Harkla, and today we're going to talk about 5 activities that will help your child or student hold their writing utensil at age level.
Does your child or your student or your client hold their pencil the right way? Do they hold the wrong way? Do you even know what the age level norms are? Do you know how they should be holding their pencil? We're here to answer all of those questions for you.
We're here to give you 5 really great activities to help your child, your clients, or your students, wherever you are, whoever you are, hold their pencil in a much better way, in a more functional way, to also improve their handwriting.
Maybe you're thinking that handwriting is a lost art and you're like, why does it matter how my child or how any child holds their pencil? We're here to tell you that it really does matter. I mean, we were talking with someone the other day about being able to sign in at the doctor's office. Having that independence to be able to write is something that we want to offer every child, no matter their level of ability. So don't give up on handwriting just because of technology. It is so crucial.
Now, we do have another YouTube video where we gave you some ideas to improve specifically handwriting, but today we're going to focus more on how the child is holding their writing utensil. So playing off of each other, but still a little bit different.
It's all connected. First things first, we want to teach you about the age-appropriate grasp norms. So when a 1-year-old picks up their pencil, they're not going to pick it up perfectly and just start writing. It doesn't work that way. There is a specific sequence that you will and you should see, and it should end up as a dynamic tripod or quadruped grasp, but you need to know how to get there.
Yes, so by about a year old, the child should be able to hold their pencil or marker or crayon in a fisted grasp. So their thumb's going to be on top, their writing utensil is in their palm, in their grasp, and they're scribbling kind of like this on their paper.
By about 2 years old, the child is able to grab their pencil or their writing utensil with their fingers, but their fingers are going to be pointing down, kind of in a radial pronated grasp. And they're still using big arm movements. They're still using both arms. They haven't quite figured out which hand is their dominant hand, but it's still very gross motor. It's not very fine or very precise.
And then by 3 to 4 years old, they're going to start using their fingers even more on their writing utensil. So the writing utensil is going to come out of their palm and move into the web space between their thumb and their index finger. They're grasping it with their fingertips. So it's starting to become more dynamic, and they might move their fingers more while they're scribbling, coloring, or writing, or drawing. But there's still going to be some arm movement, and they still might alternate between left and right hands as well, because they still haven't established a hand dominance yet.
By about 5 years old, we do see that dynamic grasp. And if you don't know what a dynamic grasp is, it's basically using the finger movements instead of the whole arm movement. So they can disassociate their fingers from their hands and their arms, and they can use those fine motor movements. By about 5, that's when we see that. They're either holding it in a tripod grasp, so with their 3 fingers, or a quadruped with their 4 fingers. And they're stabilizing it in their web space in a very appropriate way. 5 to 6 years old, we want to see that. And as well, they've established their hand dominance by this age as well. So they have consistently learned to use either their right hand or their left hand, and they're not switching hands if one gets fatigued.
The first activity that we're going to recommend you do to help with the grasp on the writing utensil is to do coloring, drawing, writing on a vertical surface as well as on the floor. So both of these positions really help facilitate good forearm and wrist position. So tape your paper up onto the wall or use a standing easel for your child to color and draw on, and do both. Put it on the floor so your child is actually laying on their stomach, propped up on their forearms to do their writing, coloring, and drawing activities. You can also place a slant board or some type of slanted surface on the floor so that the paper isn't flat on the floor, it's more upright a little bit. That helps the visual system process what's on the paper a little bit better. But these positions on the vertical surface or on the floor are great for toddlers who are just getting interested in scribbling, as well as the child ages and gets more into the advanced writing. Keep doing these different writing positions.
I will say, I'm in the thick of this right now with my 2-year-old. We love bath crayons because, again, it's a vertical surface and a vertical chalkboard. We have like a chalkboard wall, and he loves to draw on the chalkboard. And I'm like, how are you holding that so good? It's because of the way the vertical board, the small pieces of chalk, like you have no other way to hold it but to hold it properly when you set them up for success that way. The next activity is weight bearing. Now, what do we mean by weight bearing? It means bearing weight on your upper body or your hands. So this is a great preparatory activity before you ask your child to complete a handwriting activity or even an eating activity that requires utensil use, right? So getting down and doing a crawling activity or a bear crawl or even a chair push-up or a wall push-up, anything that bears weight on the hands, the upper body, is going to be really beneficial for building up the palmar arches, increasing the hand strength, again, working on those primitive reflexes that could be inhibiting handwriting, but just strengthening the hands from the inside out, as well as just, improving their palmar arches. It's all connected, so any way that we can build up the strength is going to overall help with their handwriting.
Quick side note, if you are doing these crawling activities and these animal walks, you want to make sure that your child's hands are flat on the floor, their fingers are open and spread out, and that they're facing forward in a more neutral, aligned position. Oftentimes, kiddos with decreased upper body or hand strength will curl their fingers into their palms while they're crawling, or they will externally rotate their arms or internally rotate their arms. So you just want to make sure that the hands are flat, their arms are in a more neutral facing forward position when they're doing crawling and weight-bearing activities. The third activity is to work on fine motor coordination. So what we want to work on is coordinating all of the fingers together to work efficiently and dynamically for holding that pencil in a good way. We love to do what we call squirreling, which the technical term for it is finger to palm translation or palm to finger translation. So
should we explain why we call it squirreling?
Yeah.
Because people are probably like, what does that have to do
and when
with
they
it?
see the video of it and we describe it, it'll make sense. So you're gonna have small items such as beans or coins, just small toys that your child is going to pick up with their fingertips and put or translate or squirrel into their palm and hold with the rest of their fingers.
Because if you think about it, squirrel, their cheeks are full of food, and so they just put it in their mouth and they store it in their cheeks.
Yes.
We're going to store it in our hands,
Yes.
and this is going to be our squirrel cheek.
Yes, exactly. So
It's funny if you're there. It's funny if you see it, like us.
if
We're
you see the
visualizing
squirrel,
it. Yes.
if you see the squirrel, it's funny.
Yes.
So really working on this fine motor coordination is great for establishing that dynamic finger movement, and they're coordinating all of their fingers together. They're also working on a lot of hand strength by keeping those small items in the palm of their hand. You want to do this with both hands. Even if your child has established hand dominance, make sure you're working on this fine motor coordination with both hands so you're getting a lot of that bilateral coordination as well.
The other thing you want to watch for is overflow associated movement. So if they're squirreling items into one hand, watch what their other hand is doing, watch what their mouth and their tongue is doing. Oftentimes we'll see that precision fine motor skill overflowing into their opposite hand or their mouth, which by about 5 years old, we want to see that going away. It's not considered a typical thing we want to see 5 years and up. So we do want to focus on maybe giving them a weight bearing on one hand and squirreling on the other. So maybe they can be in a quad position on their hands and knees, squirreling the items with one hand, pushing their tongue to the roof of their mouth. Give them a purposeful instruction of what they can do rather than overflowing into other parts of their body.
We do actually have a podcast episode on overflow, so we'll link that in the description below so you can check that podcast out. It kind of dives into more of the technicalities behind what overflow is, why, and how to help.
Okay, number 4, we are going to take a picture or provide a visual of what the grasp should look like. So this is ideal for maybe older elementary school kiddos who are still really struggling to pick up their pencil, know what it should look like, make it comfortable. The goal here is to take a couple of pictures of the pencil in their hand when you have helped them achieve that optimal grasp. Laminate it if you can, attach it to their desk or put it in their binder, glue it to their phone. We know wherever is appropriate for their child. You want it to be accessible. So put the picture there so that way when they pick up their pencil, they can see what it should look like, because it's so easy to go back to those muscle memory patterns of, maybe a poor grasp, and we don't want that to happen. So we provide a picture and they can see it and all will be well.
If you're a teacher, you can have these pictures maybe as big as you possibly can put on the wall in the classroom so that all of the students can see, and you can practice getting the pencil into that age-appropriate grasp, that functional dynamic grasp before everybody starts handwriting. They can all see the picture up on the wall so they know what it looks like and they know what to do. The 5th activity is what we like to call the pinch and flip, as well as a couple of other modifications that we're going to talk about. So the pinch and flip is where you're going to have your child pinch the end of their pencil and they're going to use their other hand to flip it over into the web space of their hand in between their thumb and index finger. So that really helps to get them started in that appropriate age level grasp pattern.
We really only recommend pencil grips when they have been evaluated by an occupational therapist, because sometimes when we use those different pencil grips on pencils, it can create bad habits and we don't want that. So if your child is working with an OT, make sure you ask them about those. If you have an OT in school who can come to the class and help you out and get you set up on that, perfect. But just note that while there are some great ones out there, there are also some not so good ones. One easy adaptable thing to do is to attach 2 hair ties together and then put one on the pencil and then one around the wrist, and then it will pull the pencil back into the web space where it's supposed to be. Provide a little bit of resistance. So things like that. We don't want to recommend modifying the grasp in all these different ways if we can really keep it simple and affordable and as easy to implement as possible.
Ultimately, the goal is to teach the child how to hold their writing utensil in the most efficient, dynamic, easy way possible. And sometimes that requires modifications, sometimes it requires practice, sometimes it requires extra work before the writing task, like we talked about earlier, activating those muscles, doing a preparatory activity. So finding what works for the child. Every child's a little bit different, so you get to kind of play around with these strategies, these tips and tricks, and find out what works.
That is it for you today. Thank you so much for joining us and hanging out with us and spending your very valuable time with us. Make sure that you are subscribed to our YouTube channel. We drop a new video every Tuesday. And make sure you like this video if you want to see more, and comment with what you want to learn about.
Also, make sure you're following us on Instagram. We are at Harkla_family, as well as at Things All Sensory Podcast. And make sure you listen to the podcast. We're on all podcast platforms.
Okay, we'll see you next week. Okay. I love that when we end, we're just like...
Not gonna keep that in.
Yes! It's the bend and snap. It's the pinch and flip.